Hey guys, we're here today in Valheim with a complete guide on boars. If you do watch this video and notice that there is something that I missed or information that is not included in this video, be sure to let me know down in the comments by typing, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing, this video's the best," and I'll know what you meant through the subtext. Three things we're going to quickly address before we get started is number one, all food that I know of that the boar will eat operate the same. Raspberries, blueberries, mushrooms, and carrots last for the same duration, have the same effects, and are the same quality in terms of feeding it to your boar. Two, the quality of boars are the same no matter if they're 0, 1, or 2 stars. Meaning they breed at the same rate, get tamed at the same rate, and need the same amount of room. The only thing that's different with them is how much resources they produce when killed. And 3 is that distance matters when dealing with your boars. You need to be within roughly 150 meters of them in order for them to tame or breed and produce new babies. This distance can be hard to estimate, but it is about the range of influence of 3.5 workbenches when stacked across an area. All in all, the area is large enough that if you are anywhere near your base or operating in the rough area of your base, that you should have no problems. If you are brand new to Valheim, then the first thing we need to discuss is catching boars. A fairly simple process. You need to either take round pole fence or something a little bit more permanent and place them out in a makeshift pen, leaving one slot open. Once you have a pen in place near your base, you need to locate some boar, ideally building the pen somewhat close to where they are. Moving into the area of the boars will get them to aggro you, and they will chase you. Boars have a fairly basic attack pattern. They will charge you, attempt to hit you, make a loop, and then come back at you. Get them to charge into the pen, and then place a wood pole fence to cover the exit. Once you have them trapped in, you can then finish off the building, if it's something a little more permanent, through the wood pole fence, and then delete the small fence in between. Once you have a boar captured, it is time to tame them. Every piece of food lasts 10 minutes for the boar before you need to give them another piece of food. And in that 10 minutes of taming, provided you are in the area and the boar is not frightened, they will become 33% acclimated through the taming process. Meaning it takes 3 pieces of food in order to tame them completely. And although 3 pieces will total up to 99%, it will in fact tame them. And you will gain approximately 1% of taming every 18 seconds, provided you are in the area and they are not frightened. An important thing to note with food during the taming and the breeding process is that the boars will not overeat when not hungry. So for the taming, you can throw a total of 3 food in the pen, and the boar will eat one every 10 minutes and completely tame without you having to return every 10 minutes. Similarly, with breeding, you can stack up food in one pile, and they will eat them when they need to, or when they have ran out of the 10-minute timer of their previous food. Throwing a lot of food in the pen, however, is not always a good idea. If you do leave the 150 meter range of influence, the boar's food timer of 10 minutes will continue to go on, but they will not tame at all or breed at all while you are not in the area. So you will have wasted the resources on them if you throw a bunch of food in the pen and then do not intend to stay in the area. Once you have at least 2 boars tamed, you can begin the breeding process. In order to breed boars, you need to feed them, and within that 10 minutes, you will see pink hearts pop up from a boar when it attempts to breed. These hearts must be reciprocated by the other boar within about 10 to 15 seconds, or the breeding will not stick. And the boar only seem to attempt to breed with each other when they are in somewhat close proximity, which means in a larger pen, you cannot force them to breed with each other, and too much room for your boars will cause difficulty with breeding, even if they're the only 2 boars in there. Once you have had 2 of your boars successfully heart, they will produce a baby 1.5 minutes later. So this process can be fairly quick if you are in the area. There is no set amount of time between their attempts to procreate, but I have had a lot of success repeating the ability to get 3 babies in a 10-minute period. Meaning for every 2 food you feed them, you will get 3 babies in return. Feeding your boar's food after this point has diminishing returns and can lose its effectiveness because once there are 3 other boars in the area, including the little piggies they just produced, their production levels go drastically down. And this is not to say that they won't produce at all, but it becomes much slower, and sometimes I didn't see another boar until more than 30 or 45 minutes had passed. In order to keep the production quality high, they need to be separated from any other boar by 12 meters or more. Once you drop down to 10 meters of proximity or 8 meters of proximity, the speed does go down a bit, but I was still able to achieve 3 babies in a 10-minute period. Dropping down to 6 meters of distance between them, move their production down drastically, and you only see between 1 to 2 boars in a 10-minute period. And once you get down to the 2 to 4 meter range between them, the production stops completely within 10 minutes, and like I said, you may see one in 30 or 45 minutes, but the production would be pretty terrible in general. Another thing to note is that breeding a 1-star boar with a 0-star boar, a 2-star boar with a 0, or a 2-star boar with a 1-star boar will yield you the higher star quality about 50% of the time. These numbers are difficult to give you an exact, and we're all going to experience different rates, but I did run them through quite a few tests, and approximately 50% of the time you will get the higher star boar. So if you do come across a 1 or a 2-star boar out in the wild, it's important to get it since you can breed it with your standard boar and increase the star level without too much issue, and get yourself a better farm in no time. Once you have 3 little piggies born, it will take them 50 minutes in order to grow into a full boar. And this requires no food or resources, simply time. And once you have a group of full-grown boars, harvesting them will get you meat about 50% of the time with no star boars. So if you harvested 100 boars, you would get approximately 50 meat. Harvesting 1-star boars would get you 200%, so 100 boars would produce approximately 200 meat, and 2-star boars would have a 400% meat rate, meaning harvesting 100 2-star boars would get you roughly 400 meat. So if you were questioning at all whether or not the higher star boars are worth the searching and the time to move them to your base, the answer is yes. You have a 4-time increase on the resources gathered from a 0 to a 1-star boar, and an 8 times increase on the resources gained from a 0 to a 2-star boar. If you find one of these guys out in the wild, it can be worth the effort to slowly push it or guide it back to your base, provided you're at the very least on the same island. Since boars have difficulty producing new babies whenever they are in too close a proximity to other boars, the most efficient designs for boars are definitely the more industrial and elevated designs from people like Firespark or Broadbent, and I will link their videos in the description if you are interested in building something like this to maximize your production. However, if you're more like me and are not interested in trapping boars up elevated above the ground and dropping piggies down to the ground and want something a little bit more roleplay or realistic, then I think the best pin design is to make a 2x2 pin out of the 45-degree wood roof crosses, with a standard door on one side. The 2x2 seems to work best for me to incentivize procreation. When the boars have a bigger area, they tend to walk around away from each other, and when one hearts another one attempting to procreate, the second boar a lot of times will walk out of the area and not return the heart. And although they do not have other boar in the area, they will not procreate. The 2x2 gives them a little bit of room to walk around and hang out in and produce piggies in, but gives them a tight enough area that they are kind of forced to heart each other. Once you have a 2x2 pin done, go off the side with your door and make another 2x2 pin with another door on the front end. Now, this second door will be our actual entrance into the pin. And you can see we can walk in, but if we place a beam down at the bottom inside the floor of the door, then you cannot walk in anymore, which means the boar will not be able to walk out and you will have to hop in. You can place that after the door and try to go through, or place it before the door and place the door on top of it, whichever one floats your boat. After this, I would set a 2-meter horizontal beam over one of the wood roof crosses, and that will give us a spot to place a 26-degree roof on. And then we can go down the entire line and create ourselves a peak roof. The roof is not entirely necessary, although it will protect the doors from any rotting, look a little nice like the boars have shelter, and during, say, a drake attack, it will at least give them a minor amount of defense before they're starting to get hit, and give you a bit of time to get the drake's attention. You can also make it look a little nicer by placing angled roof beams on the front and back. You can hop in the front without any issue, and then the second door you can just walk through. And then once you have one of these pins, it is possible to mark out 12 meters if you're going for the maximum distance, or you can go as low as, say, 8 to 10. And then once you have your distance marker, you can start another boar pin. This little boar pin is compact, it looks pretty decent, and you can look through the openings in the roof crosses and see your boars inside. On the middle beam, the boars have difficulty traveling through it in order to cross to the different sections, but you can push over their butts and shove them into the other pin. Or you can open the door, let them come to it, and then push them through like that. It can be difficult sometimes to shift the boars to different rooms with this pin, but it is fairly compact. When they are little piggies, they can be easier to push, so you can separate them shortly after birth. Or let them all grow up like this and then push them through the doors after that. The important thing about having the 2 separate pins is you will need to harvest these boars, and you don't want to take a shot at hitting one of your main boars if it is a 1 or 2 star. The walls will protect them, and you can simply take a polearm and harvest a group of boars at one time. The one helpful thing you could do to change it up a little bit is have double doors. That way, if a boar is blocking one door and you want to get out, you can just go through the other one. And again, I want to reiterate that this pen is the best for people like myself who want something a little bit more realistic or a little bit more roleplay. If you are looking for production, this is definitely not it. There is a reason that designs like Firespark or Broadbents are so popular and work so well. Is because the boars are elevated above the ground and they have no problems with other boar being in their area of influence, and they produce at a much higher rate. These pins here, you will only be able to produce 3 babies quickly and then have to wait the 50 minutes for them to grow up, transfer them over, and then kill them, and it will be much slower than other methods. The last thing that we're going to address in this video, and can be very important, is the range of influence on fires for frightening boars. You can see that I have marked out here all of the signs showing you how far they need to be. Your standard wood torches will scare a boar within 5 meters of it, but anything over 5 meters will be fine and not frightened at all. You can tell it by the exclamation point, and you can see the boar that's closer to the pin in the second pin is frightened, but the one farther is not. And he is right on that 5 meter line. So you need to be over 5 meters from a standard wood torch in order to not frighten your boar. It is the same distance of frightening for a guck torch. The smelter and the furnace need to be about 7 meters from the center in order to not frighten the boars. And then the center of your kiln needs to be at 8 meters, along with a standing iron torch and the bronze wall sconce. And again, you can see that the front one is frightened, but the back ones are not. So all of these distances, I'm giving you, they need to be over these. So over 8 meters away from an iron torch and a sconce. The basic campfire and the brazier need to be 11 meters or more away from your boar. The hearth needs to be 15 meter or more away from your boar. And the bonfire needs to be a whopping 17 meters or more away from your pins. And again, with the bonfire, you can see that the front one in the second pin is frightened, but the back one is not. So the bonfire is right on that line. They need to be over 17 meters away. All right, guys, there is your complete guide to boars, catching them, taming them, breeding them, and so on. Hopefully this was helpful to you and got you all the info you needed to get a good meat farm going at your base. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.